James Cummins, this is a football question, wants to know if the sad news comes to pass in January and the great Nathan Broadhead moves on, probably on loan, emoji crying, should we cheer ourselves up and nip up the A140 and replace him with Borja Sainz? Stu, what do you make of this? Broadhead, obviously we've not seen him at all. Have we seen him at all this season? He's not played, has he? He's been on the bench.
No, he got injured in the early stages of pre-season, didn't he? Very early on. Trying to remember what that was. I want to say calf injury. Might be hamstring. You'll have to hold me to that. So he was obviously playing catch up a little bit, but he has been back training for a little while now and been around it. Took him a while to even get on the bench. He's been on the bench a few times, but not got on. Obviously, in that kind of inside left role, Ipswich have got Sammy Schmodix and Jack Clark vying for that position at the moment. So, yeah, naturally, I think he'd be someone that there would be some question marks over going into January if there wants to be a bit of shuffling of the packets, which are at their 25-man squad limit at the moment. We know that Mark Ashton says that, January has been a good window for us the last 2 years in a row, and there will be business again. So, yeah, naturally, he is someone that would fall into that sort of question mark bracket at the moment. Borja Sainz, I didn't realise quite how well he had been doing until I had a little look. The amount of goals he's scored. But in answer to your question, I can't ever see Ipswich going and signing a Norwich player in the circumstances. I mean, we've talked about Poku and already. Yeah, I think Ipswich would be more likely. I just said about Schmodix and Clark. I think the need would be more probably on the right side at the moment with Ogbene injured to sort of fill a gap there rather than to go out and get another left-sider, you would imagine.
Okay. We do have a question, which we may as well do now, because Matt Caspern's been greedy and he's asked 2 questions, but I'll allow it, Matt, because I like you. He's asked, part 1, with the January transfer window coming up, where do you see us adding potentially and any outgoings either on loan or permanently? So we've talked there about Broadhead, Stewie, in terms of potential outgoings. Are there any others you think that maybe on the outgoing list before we talk about a potential target? Well, not targets, but areas to target.
Yeah, well, as I say, they're carrying a 27-man squad because there's a couple of players that don't have to be registered because they're underage. That's Delap and Hutchinson were under the age of 21 in the calendar year the season started. Slightly strange wording of the rule. So, if Ipswich want to add, they would have to remove. One option, easy option, would be to just deregister Chio Ogbene, who is unlikely to play again this season with that nasty Achilles injury. Ipswich had the option to do that. Have had the option to do that with players in the past. With someone like Lee Evans, I'm just trying to think who would have fallen into that bracket. George Hurst, who looked like they wouldn't play again this season, but they opted to keep them registered, and of course they kind of did come back in the last sort of handful of games. So I don't know if that's something they'll entertain with Chio. Ali Al-Hamadi, potentially to go out on loan. And I think in answer to the question of which areas they'll look to strengthen, I think it will be at the top end of the pitch. Kieran McKenna, obviously, it's going really well with Delap at the moment. George Hurst, showed he can have an impact at this level at Brentford. But Ipswich did want a striker going into the final knockings of the summer transfer window. We know that. We know that they tried to sign Broya from Chelsea, Latte Laff, which has now been confirmed by his agent in the last few days. And I guess, goals could be the difference between staying up and not staying up. A striker can be the difference. And as well as it's going for Delap at the moment, you never know what's around the corner, as we saw last year with George Hurst on Boxing Day. So the picture could be a little bit different by the time January comes. But I think in general, that top end of the pitch with Ogbene injured now, that leaves, Delap, Hurst, Schmodix, Clark, Hutchinson, Chaplin, Burns. So that's eight players vying for that top end of the pitch. I've not included Al-Hamadi because I think he might be one that might go out on loan for a bit of experience. And I think ideally, Kieran would like sort of 8/9 players vying for the top end of the pitch. I look at the numbers that he had last year with Kiefer Moore coming in, Sarmiento, Jackson, not necessarily the starters, but people that were able to make a difference over the course of a long season. So attacking players, in short.
Agree with that, Rossi?
Yeah, very much so. And sadly, we do have players who have got those injury question marks on them, like Wes Burns, even George Hurst, bless him. Sorry, George, but it is true. You have got a few injuries, even like against Tottenham when we won. Obviously, he had the head injury, but also he went down a little bit, didn't he? Briefly, and you thought, oh, when I was looking, I was right next to him, and I was zooming in. I was like, oh no, George, it looks like he's really in pain because Spurs kept playing on. And I go, come on, Spurs, kick it out. So yeah, you just got those question mark with those players with injuries, and you go, oh, what if they do get a knock, and then you haven't got someone to replace them? So
even Delap, sorry to interrupt, missed pretty much the whole of the second half of last season for Hull with a knee injury. You're right, that Hurst injury was concerning at the time in the second half. He came on quite late, and he was down in quite some discomfort. And I thought, oh no, he's done his knee again. And McKenna did sort of confirm afterwards it was his knee, and there was a long sort of chat about whether he should play on or not play on, and he did. So I guess leading up to the Man United game next week, we'll find what the deal is there. But that just shows you how sort of things could change very quickly for Ipswich Town.